Hello, and welcome to the Black Ponder. I'm Neil Trotter, and today we're going to be talking about The Art of War. And no, I'm not talking about the film made in the year 2000 that starred Wesley Snipes. It was an action film. No, we're not talking about that. That movie got a lot of hate. I enjoyed that film. I thought it was pretty good, but it got a lot of hate. We're not talking about that movie though. We're talking about The Real Art of War by Sun Tzu. This edition of The Art of War is another Penguins edition. I do a lot of Penguins. I like Penguin. Penguin never comes out with ugly books. All their books look nice. I love Penguin. This edition is from their Great Ideas line. And I only have this one from that particular publishing line or whatever it's called. And I mentioned that because it's really small. It's really, The Art of War is not that thick. It is also written in verse. So you can read it fairly quickly. It's not a thick book. And that surprised me at first. It really did. Because I know a lot of friends who have The Art of War, but their editions are pretty big and hefty and fat, filled with a lot of text. So when I went to the bookstore and I asked the clerk, like, hey, do you guys have The Art of War? And she's like, sure. She bring it down from the bookshelf and she shows it to me. And I'm like, is this the right book? It's so tiny. It's so small. Yeah, that's it. And it's just The Art of War without any commentary or supplemental text. The reason why my friends have these hefty versions is because it's like The Art of War for business, or The Art of War for writers, or The Art of War for cooking, or things like that. And the thing about The Art of War is that it's very straightforward and it's very practical. It is a guidebook for military strategy. I mean, that's really what this is. And for that purpose, it is very good. It excels tremendously. Military colleges are still using this book as a teaching tool today. And that's saying a lot because the book is thousands of years old. But I can see why. It's very practical. It's very straightforward. It has a lot of wisdom to offer. The problem is you kind of have to stretch your imagination once you try to apply it to other fields like business. Although there are a lot of parallels to business. I will admit that. There are definitely a lot of parallels in other fields like that because it's so straightforward to military strategy. When you try to apply it to another field, you have to add supplemental text. You have to add commentary, and that makes the book pretty hefty. I actually thought The Art of War was very easy to understand, and it was pretty straightforward. I think it becomes complicated when you try to apply it to different fields. That's when you start to have to really discuss and talk about it in extreme detail. I put a link below. It's a documentary by the History Channel, and it talks about how The Art of War can be applied practically to warfare and how it has been applied practically and the benefits of that and how it was not applied and the consequences. You might want to check that link out if you're trying to get more of a military warfare take on the book, because quite frankly, my experience of military strategy is limited to tactical role-playing video games and tabletop war games where you use like little action figures and you move them across a little table that's a model of a war field, which they're fun. I'm talking about Warhammer and Warhammer 40K. I play those games, but that's my limited experience on actual military strategy. I'm not really versed in that field, and I'm not going to even pretend to be. However, I am a small business owner, and so I do have experience in conducting business, and I oftentimes feel like it is a war out there, when in terms of business. And my enemy is pretty much the economy. It's not so much the competition or the market share or the consumer or the market it's the economy, really, because the economy's still pretty bad today, and it's hard for businesses to succeed, especially small businesses. It feels like a war, it really does. So I got a lot from this by doing that comparison. So we're gonna make our own supplementary text video right here, and we're gonna apply it to business, because you can. There are definitely some parallels. Why don't we just dive into the book and check out some quotes and see how I can apply them to my small business experience. Check this out. Treat prisoners of war kindly and care for them. Use victory over the enemy to enhance your own strength. This is why a lot of businesses merge. Or like why other bigger businesses buy smaller businesses. Because you often find that it's hard to compete in the business world. It really is. And small businesses is definitely no exception. And if you could team up and combine forces, you could definitely be more equipped at running your business more effectively. You can't really look at it like a dog eat dog type of world. I know a business, a lot of people view it that way, but in the small business world at least, it's not like that. If you look at it that way, you're probably gonna not succeed. You're not gonna do very well because you need to learn how to work with other businesses, because there's just so much you have to deal with in terms of expenses, and you can't do everything, especially when you're a small business. You don't have that many resources. So instead of competing with each other, you might instead want to consider trying to find a mutual relationship, how both of you can make profit and team up to complement each other. That's really a smart business strategy. In war, prize victory, not a protracted campaign. When you have employees, you should always celebrate the small victories, like the end of the day results or the milestones in a project. I always celebrate those more than the end result. Like if you're dealing with a project that's like a year or 6 months long, and your only time you are happy or you celebrate is at the end, because you get tired. You have to deal with so much. Just celebrate the small victories. So celebrate the small achievements. That's better. That builds morale. It really does. The victorious army is victorious first and seeks battle later. The defeated army does battle first and seeks victory later. Basically, plan ahead. And just before you even conduct business, have a plan, but not just any plan. A plan that you see yourself successful. You see at the end result is something that is achievable. Just don't go and conducting business just to conduct business. Just, you have a goal, you want to you have a product and you just want to sell it, and that's only part of it. You have to think like, okay, is this product really going to sell? I want to make this product, but is it realistic for me to do this? If I do this, will I actually make money? You have to think about that. There's a lot of businesses out there, and I've made the mistake. You do something just because you want to do it, because oftentimes you have a really good idea or a really good product or a really good service, but ultimately is impractical because you're just, in the end, it's just not a good way to make money, or it's not a good way to come out strong at the end. So you always got to think about those things first. I like this quote. This quote's really cool. Disorder is founded on order, fear on courage, weakness on strength. Just remember that good events happen after bad events. So when you're in a bad situation and when the stakes are high, just remember that that's all right. That's fine, because if you've got a good plan and you've thought things through, you can come out good, because that's where really the good things start to happen. When you're in a really scary situation, it's time to step up. That's when you really start to see if you really have courage or not. People are courageous when they're comfortable. People are courageous when they're faced with fear. A good leader doesn't just step in when times are good and then just kind of breaks down when times are hard. A good leader steps in when times are really difficult and chaotic, and then makes order out of chaos. That's really when it's time to step up. So, don't just back down when things are bad. See that as an opportunity. Like, okay, this time, because oftentimes some of the best things happen out of bad circumstances. You gotta remember that sometimes when bad things are happening, or when the times get tough, that's when there's the most potential for good things to happen. This is a really good quote. It's long, but let me share it with you. Military dispositions take form like water. Water shuns the high and hastens to the low. War shuns the strong and attacks the weak. Water shapes its current from the lie of the land. The warrior shapes his victory from the dynamic of the enemy. War has no constant dynamic. Water has no constant form. Supreme military skill lies in deriving victory from the changing circumstances of the enemy. You hear this all the time. It's true in military and it's true in business. Being successful depends on your ability to adapt. Just like water, down a stream, right? Or flowing through anything. It's dynamic. It doesn't just stick to one form. It is formless, right? That you got to be like that because the circumstances could change on a dime. You can prepare all you want for any one particular instance, but if you don't prepare for just change or just be prepared to adapt, especially in today's world, I mean, things are just changing so rapidly, and that definitely applies in the world of small business as well. You got to be able to adapt. And if you can't do that, if you're unable to do that, you're not going to be very successful. So be like the water and be formless, because the enemy, which I've said beforehand, is the economy, is constantly changing. Constantly. The economy is up and it's down. Then to make money, you got to do things this way, and then it turns around, and then the way to make money is to do something else. And you got to be ready for that. You got to be able to change on a dime. The difficulty of the fray lies in making the crooked straight and in making an advantage of misfortune. It just comes up again, and it's definitely true. A master, somebody who's really skilled or expert, is somebody who can take an unfortunate situation, a bad circumstance, and change it into something good, or at least orderly, or some jumping point, some way to start off to make it potentially something that is doable. That's really a true expert. An expert isn't somebody that just leads just in nice circumstances. A true master is one that's able to deal with incredibly difficult circumstances and still be successful. As a business person, that's something you need to always remember. That it's not really about the good times, it's really about the bad times and how you can turn those bad times into something that's good. That's really shows if you're a good business person or a not so good business person. This is interesting. He must be able to keep his own troops in ignorance, to deceive their eyes and their ears. Oftentimes I find that it's not really about deception, it's about knowing how to withhold information and when to reveal information. And that's important. A good manager is somebody who manages information very well. And sometimes your employees, they don't need to know everything that's going on in the operation. Sometimes that could be a bad thing, but you are supposed to communicate effectively as well. Just know which information you need to communicate and know which information you don't need to communicate. Don't bog your employees down with information that could scare them or cause morale to drop. But also, it's good to share information constantly, because that can build morale, and you don't want to start being too secretive. But that's important. That's what I took from that quote. The Art of War is chock full of quotes that you can apply to business, but you do have to really focus and think about them. Just think about them. Don't just read it straight through when it comes to applying this to business. Read it a little bit, then think about it, then read it again, then think about it. That's how you can successfully apply the Art of War to business or any other field besides military strategy. Anyway, this is a great book. It's very short. It's a nice read. Check it out. It's not that complicated, I don't think. I don't know. Consider getting ones without the commentary and see how that works out for you. It's not complicated. And if you use some critical thinking, you can apply this to the circumstances in your life. It is possible. I mean, you can get it for free now. I'm sure the text is so old, just search it on the internet. It's got a lot of practical philosophy, which is my favorite kind of philosophy. Anyway, this is the Black Ponder. Thanks for watching. I'm Neil Trotter.